You are a detective, and you have to catch a preacher who kills his victims in a well-planned way. The story seems very strange to you, but everything changes when you get to the roots of the killer's plan. Hey guys, this is Afraid, and you are watching 7. Let's get into it. Detective William Somerset is a wise and elderly policeman, disillusioned and exasperated by the ever-increasing rate of violence and degradation in the city where he lives. Somerset, who is 1 week away from retirement, is joined by the impulsive and instinctive young David Mills, destined to replace him. Between the two, due to the profound differences in character, there is bad blood at first. David has recently moved to the city with his wife, Tracy, with whom he does not spend much time together, as he is always at work. The next morning, David is waiting for Detective Somerset with 2 coffees in hand, but the latter refuses him because he has no time. There is a very strange murder case to investigate. The 2 detectives are called to the scene of a heinous crime. They find an obese man with his face in spaghetti with much other food on the table. Somerset immediately notices the victim's bound feet and hands, which tells him that he was not alone. After that, Detective David found a bucket full of vomit. Once an assistant lifted the victim's head, you could see his white skin and now losing eyes. David is upset that Somerset is not involving him enough in the case. In fact, he tries to talk more and more about himself and his merits. After that, the victim's body is taken away to be investigated. They soon realize that he was not poisoned, but forced to eat beyond measure until he died. The obese man was strapped in the chair for more than 12 hours, forced to eat continuously, until his stomach exploded and he hemorrhaged internally. From the characteristics of the crime, Somerset senses that he is facing a case out of the ordinary and would like to give up dealing with it. David, of course, would like to take the case, but the police captain persuades Somerset to continue. David's arrogance is through the roof. He couldn't wait to take the case, but now he'll have to team up with Somerset. The following day, the lawyer Eli Gold, known for having defended criminals and swindlers of all kinds, is found dead and mutilated inside his office. Due to Somerset's reluctance to lead the case, the examination of the crime scene is thus entrusted to David, who detects the word avarice written in blood on the floor. He also notices a kind of glasses made with blood on the photo of the lawyer's wife. Meanwhile, the police captain talks to Somerset about his police career. Afterward, he leaves some clues found in the obese man's stomach. Somerset becomes curious and decides to investigate. Once he returned to the crime scene, he found marks left on the floor after someone moved the refrigerator. In fact, the clues he had matched the marks left on the floor. After moving the fridge, Somerset found a piece of paper with a message, "Long is the way and hard that out of hell leads up to the light." It is a quote from John Milton, which meant that it was the beginning of a series of murders. There seems to be no connection between the 2 crimes, but Somerset is convinced that the murderer is the same and that he will continue to kill. Somerset also found an inscription in Greece, gluttony, which was one of the capital sins. At that point, Somerset deduces that the murderer is punishing with death those guilty of the 7 deadly sins, which in addition to gluttony and greed, include sloth, envy, pride, anger, and lust. So Somerset considers that there should be 5 more murders and is increasingly uncertain to continue investigating the case. In the evening, Somerset went through the library to read the Divine Comedy, which will help him understand several things about the case, although he doesn't want to continue working on it. Since Somerset had to retire, he had to give up his office to David, but he continued to work with him. While getting things ready, the phone rings. It was David's wife, wanting to talk to Detective Somerset and invite him to dinner. Later, Somerset meets Tracy, the young detective's wife. Tracy organized the dinner because she wants to reconcile the 2 colleagues. While they were having dinner, the table with the dishes began to shake as if there was an earthquake. But it was only the subway running over their house, which made Detective Somerset burst out laughing. Imagine what it would be like to sleep in a house like that. After dinner, Tracy goes to bed, while David and Somerset continue to investigate the case. Also, a pound of human flesh is found at the scene of the crime. Just 1 pound. No more, no less. The lawyer was forced to choose a place on the body from where to cut a pound of flesh. The 2, analyzing the photos of Eli Gold's murder, find one that depicts his wife with her eyes circled in blood, as if to indicate that she has seen something, or rather, that she has not yet seen something she should see. After meeting her and showing her the photos, the woman notices that at the scene of the crime, one of the paintings had been hung upside down. Behind the painting, they find some fingerprints. They correspond to Victor, a degenerate drug dealer accused of several crimes and for this reason, repeatedly arrested and indicted. At first glance, it seems that Victor has written his own fingerprints the words, "Help me." The detectives then, believing this to be the culprit of the previous murders, goes to Victor's apartment, discovering that the man has actually been reduced to a skeleton from being minimally fed and forced into immobility in a bed for an entire year and is therefore now dying. Apart from the body in a state of putrefaction, the detectives noticed Victor's chopped off hand, with which the killer wrote, "Help me" on the wall in the lawyer's office. While a policeman was watching Victor's face, the latter coughed loudly and started to move. All frightened began to point guns, but after all, Victor, still alive, was taken to the hospital. David seems increasingly agitated, and Somerset tries to advise him to stay calm and control his emotions. But after a tantrum with a reporter, Detective Somerset realizes that David is very impulsive and unbalanced, so he needs to be given a hand. In the hospital, the two detectives discover that they cannot ask Victor for information because he is unable to communicate. Apart from his brain becoming a mush, Victor has swallowed his own language. The next morning, Tracy invites Somerset to breakfast together to talk to him. She told him she didn't like the place, but didn't want to tell David so as to not discourage him. She also confessed to him that she was pregnant with a child. After contacting an FBI agent, Somerset illegally obtains a confidential list of people who have borrowed from various libraries books on deadly sins. On the expiation of sins, the list reveals the name of a certain John Doe who has received a loan of Dante's Comedy. While the two detectives knock in vain at the door of the house of the suspected murderer, comes an individual who, at the sight of the two, pulls out a gun and tries to kill them. The two chase the man, but Somerset cannot keep up with him. Mills, being younger, after a long chase, is treacherously hit by the murderer, who, after pointing the gun at his temple, spares him and goes away. After the failed chase, Somerset and David enter the apartment without a warrant. Inside the apartment, they also find canned tomato sauce, the same as they found in the overweight man's home. Among books and Bibles, they found a container with Victor's severed hand. In a bathtub, David found photos taken of him by the journalist with whom he had argued, so consider that the killer is precisely the journalist. In the meantime, the phone rings. It was the killer. The killer said he prepared a surprise for the two of them, but he had to hurt one of them. Later, the two find several photos depicting the killer's victims, among which a woman with blonde hair stands out. While investigating the place where John Doe may have been hiding, David and Somerset receive news of another crime. The blonde-haired woman, a prostitute who died after having sex with a man who was forced to rape her while wearing a lacerating instrument. Remember that on the door of the room is in fact written lust. The man who raped the prostitute was very agitated, scared, and sweaty. He stated that he was forced to wear that tool while he had the gun to his head. While having a drink at a bar, Somerset says he's sure this won't end well. David, on the other hand, wants to feel like the hero of the story and can't wait to bring the case to an end. The following day, a model who had taken maniacal care of her exterior appearance was found dead, her face mutilated, in her bed, on which was written the word pride, the fifth capital sin to be punished. For the circle to close, there are now two capital sins missing, envy and wrath, and therefore a sixth and seventh victim. After that, the two went to the police station, where the assistant told David that his wife had repeatedly called him. As they were going up the stairs, unexpectedly, John Doe himself turns himself into the police, and since he is all bloody, it is thought that he had committed the last murders. John declares himself willing to indicate the location of the victims' bodies, on the condition that Mills and Somerset accompany him. After getting ready, the three left in a car, guarded against above by a police helicopter. In the car, David keeps talking to the preacher and can't stay calm. The preacher had prepared a surprise for Somerset and David and couldn't wait to see their reaction. The killer said he was proud of what he did, and at the end of this story, everyone would see him as an example. The preacher continued to taunt David by telling him that he had spared his life that day when he put the gun to his head. They arrive at a completely bare desert location, but in the distance, a van is seen coming and Somerset goes to take a look. Mills remains to watch over Doe, while Somerset stops the driver, who hands him a mysterious package. The elderly detective carefully opens it, noticing bloodstains, and, after seeing the horrifying contents, desperately runs towards Mills, shouting at him not to listen to John Doe and to drop his gun. At the same time, Doe is confessing to Mills that he envied his family life with his beautiful wife, Tracy, with whom he wanted to spend a morning playing husband, and eventually killing her and cutting off her head that Somerset found in the package. The maniac's plan is now clear. He, guilty of the sin of envy, wants Mills to kill him in anger so that the 7 deadly sins are thereby fulfilled and punished. Somerset tries to convince Mills not to take revenge, but the young detective, when he learns from the murderer that his wife was pregnant, in the grip of uncontrollable anger, shoots him in the head. At dusk, the police arrive and take away the body and arrest Mills in shock. In the last scene, Somerset, as he leaves, says, "Ernest Hemingway once wrote, 'The world is a beautiful place, and it is worth fighting for.'" I agree with the second part. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, then find out how Johnny Depp must visit a village to solve a crime.